Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we're going to be talking about which champions I actually end up using frequently in an absolutely stacked up roster. Now I made a very similar video. Basically I made this video about half a year ago, but obviously in half a year the game has changed significantly. Some things for the best, some things for the worst. And we're going to go through that, and additionally obviously I'm going to be explaining which rank ups are kind of like the most frequently used, which rank ups have definitely earned back their catalyst, and which have been more of a guilty pleasure rank ups. And keep in mind, this is going to be like a perspective of an account where I have currently 39 rank 5 stars and like 17 rank 2 or above 6 stars. I think it's 6 rank 3 6 stars. So it's a stacked roster. But you'd be surprised that most of the champions hardly ever actually get pulled off the bench and actually make it into the questing teams. And that's important. I think that is important knowledge to pass on to people who are making these rank up choices, have much more limited resources, and could potentially make choices that they're later not too happy with. Therefore, it's not going to be as much as an account tour, but I'm going to split the segments here in AQ, AW, and kind of like my generic questing, and then I guess the fourth one is going to be like new big challenges or whatever. But yeah, so let's start with Alliance Quest. So the champions that get used frequently in Alliance Quest, quite obviously, is Corvus. Corvus is still the absolute MVP king of Alliance Quest at rank 3 as a 6-star Corvus. Especially in the initial days, you can even use him without Suicide Masteries, you still can get by, saves ton of items, still an absolute AQ king. Other than that, you can say Dr. Doom is quite frequently used, Nick Fury as well, especially with that double life mechanic. But the biggest problem with Alliance Quest, even though the champions themselves have been quite diverse, I tend to change my teams much more frequently than most people would. Just because I can and just because I try to use more champions. I use Night Rusher quite a lot, and he's putting in a lot of work. Occasionally I have brought in Void, I have occasionally brought in Sorcerer Supreme. Quite frequently I bring in Colossus or Ghost, and sometimes Black Widow, Clairvoyant, Hyperion, and Archangel. The rest of the champions don't really get used in Alliance Quest too much. Hulkbuster I brought in a couple of times. So those were the champions that I typically use. Dr. Doom, Nick Fury, Corvus, Silver Surfer occasionally, and then we have Omega Red, Colossus, Sorcerer Supreme, Void, Ghost. But the biggest problem with Alliance Quest right now, by far, by miles, is the fact that all 3 mini bosses and the final boss are quakeable, and Quake is close to the only kind of like good reasonable counter that you are willing to use every day, day in and day out. The problem with Alliance Quest Map 7 is these boss fights are absolutely ridiculously niche, and even if you have the great counters, they're extremely punishing with the huge attacks where you make one mistake and you're done. Alliance Quest potions are extremely expensive and you do not want to take that risk. Therefore, whenever Quake can be used, she's always kind of like go-to option because she is the safest option. Currently, you have to fight Annihilus, Sasquatch, and Sasquatch, and Thing. Maybe against Annihilus, some of the Mystic champions are somewhat more safe, but against Dr. Doom, against Sasquatch, and against Thing, definitely Quake is by far the go-to champion pretty much for everything, and every single day we can see multiple Quakes pretty much being taken into Alliance Quest. And that is a huge problem, especially since Kabam themselves have stated upon the changes of Corvus, where Corvus cannot no longer survive the timeouts, that they do not want people to resort to that kind of method. But since we do not have a 6-star Quake, since 5-star Quake is the highest one that we can use, and since, let's say, Sasquatch has a lot of damage mitigation and a lot of health, you often end up timing out, and it's boring, and it's annoying. And that's also the primary reason why I don't really enjoy Alliance Quest anymore, because the mini-boss and boss fights are quite awful. And Quake is the key that unlocks those fights, but it's still boring. It's still 3 minutes straight up quaking, timing out and going in quaking for another minute for most of the time. And Kabam said that's not what they want to do, but with the release of Sasquatch, they pretty much kind of like cemented, because they took away Omega Red, which was like the only mini boss you didn't want to Quake, and added in another mini boss that you definitely want to Quake. And yeah, Quake is most of the time actually in AQ now, just because the mini bosses are so horrible. Now let's talk about Alliance War Attack. Alliance War Attack has changed drastically. 2 seasons ago, 2.5 seasons ago, whatever, we pretty much had more or less set standard team of Quake and whatever else. Right? Alliance War, I still use Quake in some wars, but the entire Alliance use so much more diverse teams. And even though I think that Stubborn is an absolutely awful defensive tactic, plenty of the new nodes are absolutely awful. But I would much more freely attribute this to the change in the champions that have been released, and we have a lot more champions that are very specific and require specific counters on defense. Like Dragon Man is a robot that you can't use Medusa on, so you need to find an alternative way. Like we have, I don't know, Airwalker now is coming in who needs a counter. And pretty much every other new champion that has been released kind of demands more or less a counter. And that has led to much more diverse offensive alliance or teams. And I have started enjoying Alliance War more recently, despite the Stubborn, because Stubborn is really big pain in the ass. And part of me actually liking Alliance War more is the fact that you get to attack with more diverse teams. Like in last 2 seasons, I have used Corvus, Nick Fury, Dr. Doom a lot in Alliance War. Warlock has been used, Magneto, Red Guardian I have brought in, Mr. Fantastic, even if it's though for Dr. Doom synergy. I have brought in Blade, I have brought in Captain America Infinity War, I have brought in Void, I have brought in Sorcerer Supreme. Don't think I have brought in Ghost, I have brought in Colossus, I have brought in Havoc, I brought in Archangel, definitely brought in Quake, I brought in Human Torch, I brought in Hyperion, I repeatedly brought in Venom. And what I'm trying to say is Alliance Wars now are much more diverse, and every single niche utility that you have in your roster these days gets utilized a lot more. So when it comes specifically for Alliance War use, I think the game has went in the right direction and rewards people who have larger accounts and bigger rosters. It's not only if you have Blade Trinity, you can cover pretty much anything in Alliance War. It's not on anymore if you have Ghost Trinity, you can cover pretty much anything in Alliance War. It's not if you can Quake, you can cover pretty much anything. It rewards you with pretty much every single new rank up that you have. At least competitive kind of like meta rank up within top 10, 20 of top champions in the game. So Alliance War change has definitely been good. And as I mentioned, the biggest MVPs have been Quake, Dr. Doom, Nick Fury, Corvus Glaive, Red Guardian, Medusa, Void, Archangel, and Venom for me personally, if I would have to pick some. Those champions have been putting in a lot of work for me. Now, when it comes to casual questing, I typically, obviously, there is Corvus. Whenever I run Suicide Masters, Corvus just shreds pretty much anything. Or I use Domino Trinity. That's pretty much the only way how I actually use Domino. I have never actually used Domino anywhere where it matters. If I would have to make the decision again, I probably wouldn't take Domino up. I kind of took her up for giggles. And she's great to use in kind of like more casual, uncollected questing or whenever you want to do something day to day, because she does finish his fights really quickly. But unfortunately, the scene of the game right now is a bit more specific, where Domino I don't think quite measures up, especially the fact that she would ideally require 3 slots in your team. But still, for casual questing, I definitely use Corvus and Domino and Nick Fury occasionally. And that's more or less it, actually. I don't use too many different champions. I just pick champions that can kill everything the fastest and the easiest. And yeah, those would be kind of my regular questers. And when I would go and take on a big challenge, let's say we had this Omega boss rush, my personal choice kind of like always tend to slip towards Dr. Doom, Nick Fury, Quake, and then you kind of like select a few specialty champions. that I use. I think that Colossus have been doing absolutely fantastically for me in Act 6 and pretty much anywhere else. Quake is obviously up there still. Hyperion, Archangel, and Human Torch are some of the must-haves when it comes to tackling harder content, and I rely on them a lot. I actually don't use Ghost too much, to most people's surprise, I guess. Aegon is obviously great for longer contents. And other than that, you can see Thing is a rank 3 6-star that sits on defense, and I hardly use anywhere. My 5-star Doom gets used only if 6-star Doom is preoccupied. Warlock sees play here and there. Silver Surfer, not really, unless I'm just trying to goof off and try and have fun. Magneto is new rank up, so I can't comment on it. Red Guardian is extremely nice niche utility champion to have. Definitely have used multiple times in Alliance War and some questing. Phoenix doesn't see too much play. Captain Marvel movie version doesn't see much play. Mr. Fantastic does see quite a bit of use. Goldpool only with synergy with Nick when I'm running Suicides. Corvus Glaive 5-star, haven't used him in ages. Sabretooth only for synergy. Thor Ragnarok never. Blade never. Aegon only for long content. Night Rusher occasionally, and AQ. Taskmaster occasionally for funsies. He's definitely not really the greatest champion, but he's fun. Then we have Longshot. Again, that's more or less for giggles. I think Longshot is definition of kind of like guilty pleasure rank up. You can pick on a lot better Mystic champions who can do a lot more. But whatever Longshot can do, he's going to do more fun than most other champions. That's still kind of guilty pleasure rank up. Captain America Infinity War does get used a lot. Omega, not really. Medusa in Alliance War now and then. MODOK, never. Void, very seldom. Sorcerer Supreme, yes, and a lot, and she's fantastic. And I'm about to name her second best Mystic champion in game because she is insanely good. Sentinel did well in Act 6, don't really play otherwise. Ghost used her here and there in Act 6, don't really play her otherwise much, sometimes IQ. Magic still gets quite a bit of play. Iron Man, Infinity War, never. Colossus, a lot. Elsa is new rank up. Havoc, here and there. Emma Frost, mainly as Colossus synergy. Black Widow, Clairvoyant, I do use her here and there, but not too much. Stealth with Spider-Man, not really. Quake, a lot. Thor, a lot. Heimdall, Alliance with defense and synergies. Archangel, a lot. Hyperion, use it a lot. Human Torch, yes, fair amount. Venom, fair amount. Nick Fury, 5-star, only when 6-star is busy. Carnage, yes, for fun, a lot. I do use him quite a bit, he's really fun to play. Mysterio, 5-star Domino, Wasp, not really too much. Hulkbuster and Guillotine 2019. Hulkbuster for funsies, Guillotine pretty much never. Red Hulk Massacre, largely a synergy piece, even though they are really good champions. I don't play too much with them. She-Hulk I do use here and there, sometimes in Alliance War as well. So these are the champions that I have ranked, and that more or less would describe how much I use them. But typically, again, like my, let's say, 5 most hard-working champions in that count. This is going to effectively boil down the entire video right now. And if I would have to name 5 champions I use most often with the rarities that you see them here, then we're going to go with Nick Fury as number 1. And we're going to go to Dr. Doom probably as number 2. Quake is number 3. Yeah, Nick Fury, Quake, and Dr. Doom. 4 and 5. 4 is probably going to be Hyperion. I use Hyperion a lot. And 5 could very well be Archangel. Archangel has been putting in a lot of work. I do use, obviously, more champions. I use Corvus for a bit. As I said, Red Guardian would be 6 and 7. Then we would have Sorcerer Supreme as 8. Colossus as 9. And I guess Human Torch is 10. Yeah, that's about it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, because I think it could potentially provide a relatively decent perspective to somebody who's looking at ranking up these champions. And obviously this is my personal experience, my personal situation, because everybody might be different. You might think that using Stealth with Spider-Man is the best thing in the world and he's the most frequently used champion for you. It's just personal experience and kind of retelling of which champions I have personally relied on the most. Yeah, that will pretty much do for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button, hit that sub button, hit all the buttons, and I'm gonna catch you guys soon. See ya!